Hello, this week it's buckle mania again. There are lots of very interesting areas in antique silver, sugar tongs, buckles, snuff boxes, vinaigrettes, all these things. And actually each one of them, looking at them properly, is a really deep subject. So we will keep returning to them. You'll think, my God, he did 5 videos on buckles already. Why is he doing another? Well, I'm doing another because this is as I come across things, but things that are different and tell a slightly different story or take us in another direction. And I also want to help people that are watching in terms of collecting, because I am aware a lot of you that watch now are nascent collectors of antique silver, and there's an awful lot out there now with the internet. When I was a boy, you went to an antiques fair once a month and probably saw 3 people. Now, if you want to, you can look at 300,000 items a week, and it can all be a bit overwhelming. I do appreciate that. I get overwhelmed, and I've been doing it for a very long time. So I want to keep touching on pointers as well. And you may think, oh, he's repeating himself. Well, maybe I do, but it's probably good advice if I do repeat it. So I found 2 pairs of buckles last week. They've arrived, and they're very interesting for different reasons. The first pair I want to show you, and they are shoe buckles. A couple of people have asked, buckles for what? Well, they're for shoes. Before we had lace-ups or those Velcro strips or slip-ons. Although now I think they had slip-ons at this period. They call them slippers. But these are the buckles for a nice gentleman's pair of shoes. And they are typically in silver. The frame is usually cast silver. And you'll find that a lot of the makers of buckles are also makers of tongs in the earlier period and then sugar tongs, because all the elements in them, all the silver elements, are cast. So it's the same skill set. They're not necessarily experts in making buckles or tongs. They're experts in casting silver to whatever design or shape you require and finishing it. So these are cast, and you've got oval buckles. And slightly later on, these are assayed on the back here. We have a maker's mark. You tend to only get a maker's mark and a standard mark. When duty is payable on silver, then you get a duty mark as well. That helps you date them, which you'll see I've mentioned in an earlier video. We won't go over all that. But these are by William Pinder of London, and they're made around 1770. You can sometimes date them from the style of the Lion Passant, roughly, within sort of a 10 to 15 year period. Often you have to go stylistically. The only shortfall with that is that buckles are items of fashion. And some people, as you'll know, probably me, looking at my very stilted array of shirts, wear the same thing for years. So you will sometimes find buckles that look earlier than they are because the client that has gone in and ordered them has wanted a particular style. But these are largely unexceptional, apart from the fact that they are in wonderful condition. And condition is something that's not thought about with buckles in quite the same way it is with other silver. But when these were worn or heavily worn or used, you can get rubbing to this frame. You can start to lose the crispness of the decoration. And my dear late buckle mentor, who taught me almost everything I know about buckles, and probably taught everybody else what they know about buckles, was very keen to impress on me to look for the crispness of the finish of this decoration. It is cast, but then that is all hand chased. And you often have this design where you have flower heads at north, south, east and west, because here, this part of the frame is built up, it's thicker. They've added more silver so it bows out slightly, because this is the part that accommodates the steel pin that holds this chape which is the bit that does the work, does the business of having those shoe ribbons put through it and securing it. So that has to be thicker and stronger. So because of that, it's slightly wider. So they put flower heads on. And I think they put the flower heads here simply to balance out the decoration. It's a very common motif with buckles, certainly of this period, the 1770s and slightly earlier. But also the steel chapes that are here are in lovely condition, not a lot of rusting, and they're beautifully finished. If I hold it there, you can see that rather than just being a simple bit of metal, they've chamfered. If I tilt it, they've chamfered all of that inside, which would never be seen. It's only the frame. Once you've popped these out, it's only the frame and actually the ends of those prongs that will show through when you're wearing your shoes. If you're the sort of person that wears them, and reenactors do, so they'll know all about it. But that finish there is just quality. It's just the quality of them. So these are beautiful quality, lovely condition. And these are the sort of things that if you were starting to collect Georgian shoe buckles, you couldn't go wrong with those. They're absolutely perfect. What's interesting is I bought two pairs of buckles in the same auction, I think from the same collector. Now, this pair were described as being 6 centimetres long, which they are. I won't argue whether that's length or width. It is length, probably. The other pair were described as being 8 centimetres long. And you're probably thinking, well, they're just marginally bigger than this. So this is something else to look out for if you're collecting buckles. An incremental addition to the length of a buckle can actually mean a huge increase in size. And I'll show you one of the exceptional pair. So those are 8 centimetre buckles. So they are enormous by comparison. They're sort of almost double the size. So do watch out for that when you're looking through auction catalogues. Shouldn't have told you that. Now, these are the pair that I'm really excited about and wanted to talk about. Again, you can see they've got flower head motifs here. And they would have had them here, but instead the goldsmith has decided to have a bit of open work decoration. But it's still given that extra width. The rare thing, and I'll just hold one as I talk about them, the rare thing about these, which you may notice now, if you think about it, it's this part, it's the chape. And the chape is solid silver. So remember, 99 times out of 100, in fact more than that, 999 times out of 1,000, the chape is going to be steel. It's the bit you don't see. It's going to be steel. These are silver. Hugely expensive to do this. Doubles the weight of the silver. So effectively, they're already twice the price of a big luxurious pair like this with steel chapes. So why do you do it? It's very rare, I must say. I don't know whether it's very rare because very few pairs were made. Fewer pairs were certainly made because of the expense. I think they're also exceptionally rare now. And when I say exceptionally rare, remember I've seen probably more shoe buckles than anybody else alive. And I have seen probably 3 or 4 pairs with this silver chape in them. That's period. That isn't a... There are later replacements that people make where there isn't a chape and they take them to silversmiths and silversmiths make the chape out of silver. These are all hallmarked. The frames are hallmarked by Charles Huffam, London, and unusually with a date letter, just on this one here, for 1790. But every part, if I move this down, standard mark, maker's mark. Look at the other one briefly. Standard mark, maker's mark, standard mark, maker's mark, and then at the side, standard mark, maker's mark, duty mark on all these parts. They're extensively marked and all original. But original examples with silver chapes in, very few. Now, my old buckle mentor, I take no credit for this, He believed he'd worked out why this happens, and I believe it too. I'll explain my thinking, why these are quite so rare as they are, and it all comes down, the thinking, to that. And I was delighted to see it when these arrived. They're fabulous buckles, but the thing that really thrilled me is that, the pin. Have I lost my mind? The pin is brass. Why am I getting excited over a brass pin in a pair of rare solid silver buckles? The reason you make buckles entirely out of silver with a brass pin is because you don't want any steel on there. Why don't you want steel on a buckle? What's the problem with steel that you don't get with silver and brass? That was the question that my buckle mentor asked himself. Why go to all this trouble? No other buckles have brass pins. Brass buckles do, but no other buckles have brass pins. Only these buckles have solid brass pins. Only these buckles have solid silver chapes to match the frame. What's the problem? Have you worked it out? I've been talking long enough for you to think. Rust. The problem is rust. Steel, as we know with these buckles, which is why I was delighted to find these in super condition, because steel rusts. You go out in the rain, they get wet, you don't clean them, they begin to rust. Is that such a problem? Is that such a difficulty? Don't you have servants for that in the 18th century? Well, you do, but not if you spend most of your time aboard ship. Because if you're on a ship, you're constantly getting splashed and sprayed, not just with water, but with salt water. And salt water and steel are fire and ice. And certainly after even just a few weeks of having steel mechanism or even a steel pin, if everything else is silver, even if you've got the steel pin in there, that pin is going to rot and rust and your buckles will be useless. These are naval buckles. That's the conclusion my mentor came to, and I hold to it. And until anybody else comes up with a better explanation, that, believe me, is the answer. These are buckles worn probably by captains of merchant ships and possibly also members of the Navy, because there are portraits that exist showing naval officers wearing fabulous pairs of silver buckles. So this is the rarity, this is the thing, this is why we get excited over a brass pin, and this is why collecting is such a fabulous thing. My dear buckle mentor wouldn't have worked all of this out if he hadn't seen, thousands and thousands of pairs of buckles in museums and institutional collections and all over the globe, which he did. And he realised how few of these there were, and he realised that all of them shared this common feature when you find them of having a brass pin. And they were the only ones that did that. So that's working out with the old brain box, and this is why I was delighted. I've never personally owned a pair of these all silver brass pinned, let's call them naval buckles for distinction, but you wouldn't necessarily have to be in the Navy, but naval buckles before. And rare things they are. So rare. I've only seen 3 or 4 pairs of these in my life. And I think I've seen more buckles than anybody else alive. At least I hope so. So that's something to share with you, and I hope you're glad to see those. Not everything I show you is for sale, I should say, but I do sell some of it. So if you see things you like, do send me an email. It's all there. And one final note before we go. Thank you to everybody that's bought a copy of this and enjoyed it and got back to me and said you've enjoyed it. And there was, I believe you're all quite genuine, because you've already spent your money, so you've no reason to lie. And also to the people that have taken the extra time and left a very kind review on Amazon. I must say, I've been told by people that understand the book industry a lot better than I do, that a few kind words of a verified purchaser as a review can make the world of difference. So if you have bought one, you have enjoyed it, and you haven't left a review on Amazon, if you take 1 or 2 minutes to do that and just say it's a good read or something, that would be much appreciated, and it will help apparently enormously. I don't know what happens. I don't know if Jeff Bezos comes to my house and gives me a space rocket. Who knows? But it's much appreciated, and I'm more touched that lots of you have enjoyed reading it, because it is all true, as I said, which is unfortunate for the handful of people that are also mentioned in it. But we won't go there. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you've enjoyed the buckles, and more nonsense next week. But until then, goodbye and good antiques hunting.